Welcome to Beyond Bitcoin, open source BitShares Hangouts. These Hangouts starts every Friday at 1 p.m. UTC. To be in the loop, follow the BitShares tag on steemit.com and follow Official Fuzzy, who is hosting these Hangouts. Find the weekly BitShares open source Hangout open agenda post to participate in the discussion and RSVP a topic or proposal. BitShares is the fastest decentralized exchange in the world and is competing for the fastest blockchain in cryptocurrency. BitShares offers enterprise scalability, self-governance and separation of power built in. With BitShares, you can create and trade your own cryptographically secure cryptocurrency with user-issued assets. Build and trade custom smart coins based on world-class financial smart contracts. Define and trade mark-backed assets that track the price of real-world investment vehicles, freeing from exposure to middleman risk. Work for a chain based on votes by the community.
Welcome everyone to another BitShares open source hangout on the Beyond Bitcoin network. Today is Friday, July 28th, 2017. And this is episode 31. We're joined, as we are every week, by members of the BitShares community, which anyone who holds these tokens has a vote in our community and therefore can join these hangouts. So feel free to join these entrepreneurs and crypto nerds who are interested in using the BitShares blockchain to take us above and beyond Bitcoin and its capabilities, and indeed what is proving to be the capabilities of the entire crypto ecosystem combined. So with that said, we do have a weekly hangout here where people can voice their opinion via an RSVP thread on steemit.com. You can join steemit.com, check out our thread there, and post a potential worker proposal or a topic that you feel is important for the ecosystem. So feel free to join there, post it, maybe even join up and speak. The people who speak at these hangouts, they earn Beyond Bits equal to the number of upvotes that we receive. So if we receive $500 on our post, we will give out 500 Beyond Bits to the people who were speaking at our hangouts about specific topics that they have RSVP'd on. This is in addition, of course, to the upvotes that most of them receive that give them a good amount of money in and of themselves. So with that said, we have three different speakers that are going to be here this week to talk about various issues. Talkinator is going to be joining us and talking first a little bit about his BitShares fees report. He's been doing this for a little while now, and he's giving us a weekly report on the collected fees. Is it a monthly report, I believe?
Monthly, yes.
A monthly report.
Talkinator has the sexy.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
And this one is going to be for the month of June. And then we're going to move on to CM Steem. And he's going to be talking a little bit about his BitShares activity this week. GitHub pull requests for BSIPs 19, 20, 21, and 22 submitted. There's something called Hadoop map reduce brainstorming, which is something that he's going to be talking about and has a GitHub and BitShares talk thread on. And algorithm-based assets for the BitShares DEX. And then we're going to end this hangout today with a few reminders, just a couple quick updates. One would be with the CoinMarketCap, the blockchain is hiring ad campaign. I'm going to give a really quick Whale Shares and Beyond Bit update. And I would like to talk a little bit, if we have time, every hangout, about the possibility of a BitShares forum based on ChainBB, where people can start earning tokens for posting. So with that said, I'll go ahead and I'll ask Talkinator, are you ready to give your update?
Yep, ready to go.
Okay, so feel free to go ahead and speak up.
Thanks. So I recently prepared and posted on Steemit and also in the forums the report for June 2017, which also includes the various collected fees from the months prior to that, going all the way to the blockchain's start. And for the month of June, the network had collected 1.6 million BTS, BitShares, for 9.3 million operations. And that was just for the month of June. And within the month of June, the leading operation that brings in those fees is the asset creation operation. And in general, that is the leading operation for the whole network with the way the fees have been structured. And so for the month of June, that was 64% of the fees were collected were just for asset creation. So that's for creating, let's say, a special 3 or 4 or multiple letter asset, usually user issue asset. Then far below that for the month of June were also account upgrades, like moving from up to lifetime membership. And then also at a similar number at around 15% were account creations. And so those were the top 3 leading operations for the month of June. And if you compare that just overall in terms of in general, since the blockchain's inception, the asset creation brings in half of all the fees that BitShares 2.0 has collected. So that is just a leading operation type for the network. And I think also, and just one last thing that was interesting, I think, since the last report that I prepared in April, was that just the increase in the number of operations just over the past 3-4 months. So that's gone up. It used to be around the 1 million, roughly 1 million operations per month. And then during the past 2 months, it's jumped up to 9 million, both for June and for May. So there's been a significant increase in the number of operations on the blockchain. And I think that wraps up kind of a summary view of the report. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
So 1.6 million BTS were collected
for June.
And that,
how many new tokens were created? That's really interesting to me, because like we've had some initiatives, so like we've created a lot of tokens, and I'm just pretty interested in.
If you give me a minute, I think I might be able to look that up.
While you do that, I'll go ahead and I'll just give the rundown of what calculation I came up with. Given a BitShare token each being 12 cents, that comes down to $192,000 just for the month of June.
I mean, it was 14 cents last time I looked. It was 11 cents last time I bought it in, and 17 cents last time I sold out. So where does that come from? Come on.
Yeah, I think it's 13. I think it's 13 cents right now as we speak.
So I was able to find that, and hold on, I'm not sure I'm looking at the right month. Give me a minute. Yeah, so for the month of June, and I think I'm looking at the right data, the number of assets that were created for the month of June were 70. And depending on the length of how many characters go into that asset, the fee for the asset will be different. But for the month of June, it looks like it was 70.
Does that answer your question, Walrus?
So 70 assets were created in June?
Mm-hmm, that's right.
Well, just real quick along those lines, what you were talking about right there, Walrus.
Did it change while I had?
Yeah, I asked him exactly that. I asked him, like, what's the change over time? Has it increased? Because you're trying to figure out, are people starting to make tokens more on BitShares because of what we did with whale shares? I would like to see if there's like an increase over the past. I mean, I know you haven't looked at like many. It's not a longitudinal study by any stretch of the imagination yet, but we can kind of maybe garner something from it.
Yeah. So the data is there but in general, the asset creations is the leading operation type for collecting fees.
Yeah. So it's basically the majority of the fees that we collect are from creating assets and, creating accounts and updating of those accounts, and like the transferring of assets and the creation of like trades on the decentralized exchange make up less than 10% of the total collected fees. So, by severely reducing the fees, potentially that could draw in more users to trade and create accounts and assets, where we primarily get our fees from.
Okay, I got a question. Right. Are you sure it's a good idea to reduce fees for creating the token? Because, I think they're going to do it in any way. You might as well get as much as you can out of it, right?
Well, I think, Sam, did I understand your point, which was that you were thinking, well, if there has been discussion about reducing fees for these other operation types, transfers and market orders. And with the argument being,
well, those are two different things between creation fees and market orders. Those are two different things, right?
Between which two did you say?
Creation fees and market orders are two different things.
Yeah, depending on what we're creating. Right. They're two different ones. So if I understood Custom Miner's point, which was if we reduce the fees of transfers and limit orders to kind of zero and just instead use rate limiting, then it wouldn't necessarily have a big impact on the fees collected by the blockchain. Is that your point?
Yeah. Sorry, were you talking to me?
That's a very valuable point. I think he's talking to UCM.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, if we attract more people to trade on our exchange, then more people will be creating assets and creating accounts and upgrading accounts, which is where we primarily get our fees from.
We could. I mean, it's certainly, financially, I think it would be a reasonable thing to try. And then I guess my question is, is that what is limiting participation, considering that the fees, I think, are pretty low anyway, the way they're right now?
I don't think the fees are a problem. I think the fees, maybe you should have a fee, how many of the token you want to create, because there's people that have made 10 billion of a token that has absolutely no value, and that really doesn't help us. You know what I mean?
Well, I know I've made tokens for people because they said they can't afford it. They have said that to me. But what they're talking about, I think, Walrus, is rate limiting, which would be more like what Steam does, where you have bandwidth, essentially. If I'm correct. I mean, is that what you guys are talking about?
I think so.
Switching over to that model?
Yeah, I mean, if you were able to put up your potential offer for a very low amount, and then when it does get filled, that's when we start putting on fees. I think we might see more potential trades up in the DEX and stuff.
You're talking about random people making a token that has 10 billion total supply and then issuing 6 billion, 50 million of it and acting like they're rich because they sold each other for 30 BitShares a piece. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the free market. Those people got torn up anyway, right? But anyway, back to what you were saying, Custom. Sorry about that, man.
No, sorry. I pretty much made my point. Basically, our primary fees come from free, the creating of assets and the creating of accounts. So driving more people to our exchange is probably the a good idea.
And also, so I think that's a worthy debate. And since it is so low, we could do an experiment like that. But also just to give an idea right now. So starting with this report, I was able to add in the actual number of operations by operation type, in addition to what the fees were. And so if you go and take a look at the report, for example, the June report, and take a look at table 573 and table 574, it lists the number of operations for transfers and the number of operations for limit order creations, which is placing an order on the market. And just looking at limit orders, placing a new order on the market. So there were approximately about 4.5 million operations with the fees as they currently are. So, that's the question, is that, do we think that we'll have a significant increase in limit order creations by reducing the fees to essentially zero and maybe with some rate limit?
Honestly, I don't think anybody has a problem with the fees as they are. I don't think that'll help anything, to tell you the truth. Right? That was your question?
I think that's CM's kind of question and suggestion, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think there's something to that,
Here's my thought. If somebody comes out and says, we have free transit. Hold on, let me. I'm going to make this one point. If somebody comes out and says to people, let's say there's 2 hot dog stands. One of them says very cheap hot dogs. The other one says free hot dogs. Where will the line start first?
Probably free.
That's assuming people see both hot dog stands.
That is assuming that they see both hot dog stands, but we've already noticed that there are people out there who use a lot of money to do nothing but clone existing technology that's innovative and use that money that they saved by not having to innovate on their own to advertise a clone and lies. We've already seen this happen for a BitShares based clone that pretends to be something for on EOS and pretends that Bytemaster is an advisor on it. They took the open source code. They're going to take a bunch of money from people and beg for people, and people are going to beg for regulation, which is, I thought, what we were hoping that we would never have to worry about. So what I guess my point is, though, that this happened already. If people think that it won't happen again and that people aren't going to get hurt by this, then I think that we should be always considering, what the competition would do, and say, if we can do it and it doesn't harm us and it only really could help us, then maybe we should try it. But I can kind of see what you're talking about, Wallace. Like, people don't really complain about the fees of sending things or trading. They do complain to me about accounts, long-term lifetime membership accounts, account creation, the cost for that, and the cost for creating an asset. But then again, we probably want the cost for an asset to be a little bit expensive.
Yeah, I mean, so that it doesn't create necessarily spam or dust, but that could also be filtered back by CM's a thought of rate limiting as well.
I'd be interested to hear more about it. Maybe Custom Miner, since this is your segment, you could dig into it a little bit. Like, do you agree with Talkinator on that point?
What, on the rate limiting?
Yeah, that it would actually be that it would be kind of a protective measure in ways.
Yeah, I think it would be beneficial. I'm not sure about a protective measure. I think I might have missed that. But I mean, I think keeping the account and asset creation fees is a good idea. But, making it free to put up a potential trade would encourage more people to put up trades, which would improve liquidity and people coming to us and stuff.
Oh, so no change to the asset creation at all. Just keep it completely where it's at. It's a little bit pricey. Account creation, keep it at that, but make it like whenever you're in there, it's free. Like, maybe free when you get a lifetime membership.
Well, perhaps, pegging it to the USD instead of, setting it in BTS, to which the committee has to change it when the price fluctuates, would be advisable, That way we set it and then we forget about it.
I agree.
So between those two ideas of rate limited free transactions for, let's say, market orders and transfers versus having fees explicitly defined on the network in a market peg asset like BitUSD, between those two ideas, what do you think is your priority?
Probably the transactions. I mean, the committee at the moment has the ability to change the fees anytime, but the other would require development. Well, I guess also the USD pegging would require development in some kind of script, perhaps.
Yeah.
I think we still need to make it easy for them to do that, because it seems like it's very difficult and they don't get paid anything. You know what I mean?
The committee for doing that.
Yeah.
Well, I think both are interesting ideas, and then it's a matter, I think, of prioritizing, and then of course getting approval from everybody.
Yeah, this is something that we should probably look into. I mean, I'm interested in seeing. I know how I'll vote for it, because I think rate limiting has proven itself now. I really, and I think that we can do some clever little tricks using it. So I'm very interested in it. I know how I would vote for it. I agree with Walrus. Like, what would changing fees do? Not very much, as far as people complaining about certain things like that. But what it would do is it would put us in a very, that's a step in the direction of EOS anyway. You know what I mean?
Here's something I think, that the fee for creating a token should depend on how much you're making. Like, if you're going to make 10 billion possible and issue 6 billion, then that should cost quite a bit of money, because that's a lot. You know what I mean? Versus if you're going to make 150,000. You know what I mean? They shouldn't cost.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that we can do, and especially I really like the idea of what Custom Miner's saying, because free is like the honeypot to bring the flies, right? And then when they're in the honeypot, now you've got them there. So now you can trap them to make honey for you.
Why do you want a jar full of bees or flies?
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I guess.
No, you really brought up a good point.
Free, what I mean is free is something that attracts a certain type of person versus isn't something you're about to talk about, something like development today? Like, who are you trying to attack? Flies to honey?
Do we really want to attract people that are going to make a token that there's 10 million of that really has no purpose?
Well, that's what I'm saying, is like with creative things that like increasing, you could increase the cost to create a token, right? And potentially use rate limiting to bring in people and increase the cost for other things. And I don't see how I might be seeing it wrong too. So because I don't have all the ideas as far as what custom miner. Maybe you can give some background as far as how you see rate limiting working in BitShares.
Well, every once in a while people do complain about having to pay for fees, and I mean, if someone is worried about, paying for a fee and they get 50 free transactions a week or something like that, just throwing an example out there, then that might encourage them to stay with the BitShares DEX, promote it to people they know, perhaps even buy a lifetime membership, which is where we primarily get our fees from. If we're talking about less than 10% of our fees come from many different transactions, of which, different types of transactions, of which, perhaps less than 5% is from filled orders. It's not. I think the benefit is greater than the 5% that we would be losing.
So maybe I can chime in a little bit with something that might be of interest and relates to Custom Miner's point. So I think recently, it was approximately 1 or 2 months ago, the committee changed the fees for account creation. And so let me just give you 4 numbers to think about in terms of the number of operations as they changed from March, April, May, and June. Okay, so let me just get this first. So during the month of March, before the fees for account creation were changed, there were account creations. There were 4,300 account creations. During the month of April, that increased to approximately 6,000. During the month of May, that increased from 6,000, is what I just said, to 97,000. Last in June, it went from 97,000 to 170,000. So there was a big difference for the number of operations of account creations between April and May. And I think the committee, I'll have to try to find it, but the committee changed the fees for that operation sometime in that time frame. So the question is, okay, is it because the committee changed the fee, or was it just a sudden surge of interest in BitShares? And I think that's the open question for me.
There was a sudden surge in interest in BitShares because that's when WellShares came out.
Also, May is when the recent bubble started. So there's a huge surge of interest in crypto in general.
Well,
That too.
I think that WellShares can do quite a lot. I actually know that we have numbers to show it, but I also think it's important that we recognize that EOS was another big reason, because I saw the BitShares Telegram literally double in the number of people in it over the course of, maybe the past 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
So basically there
are many factors, I guess, is my point. Now, Custom Miner, is there anything that I would like to continue on, anything that you feel?
What was the difference between June and July? Just out of curiosity.
Don't yet have that number. But between May and June, May was 170,000. June actually was a drop. Dropped down to 97,000.
And for BSIP 20 custom profit sharing and dividends for user issued assets, have you thought about the potential for something like a service where it does it for user issued assets? Like, we get it paid for, but we would create a service that would do this and have tokens for it. And those tokens are used by the token creator to essentially subscribe from that service on BitShares to that service on BitShares. Like, you have to pay Divi coin, to open up, and 12 of them a year to have dividends on your token. And now that could be something that we could actually monetize BSIPs, essentially, is I guess what I'm talking about. Create tokens for BSIPs where that service makes money for people who invest in it.
Hey, call me crazy, but I think it should cost more. A lot to create a token with 10 billion total and a 6 billion original issue than it does to create 150,000 total supply and 50,000 original issue.
Do you want me to talk about the BSIPs? I don't know what Walsh is on about. I mean, with regards to the BSIP 20, the dividends for user issued assets, you can certainly do that through like an external mechanism where you take who you basically grab who the asset holders are and their holdings, and create an additional issuance of that token and then manually transfer the tokens to them. But BSCP 19s and 20 kind of propose like a semi-automated manner of distributing additional tokens, or well, through 20 at least, is through the additional tokens.
Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking is like, could it be automated, something like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, what would be best would be if you
Have
could
it on
set
chain.
Yeah, if you could set, right, I want to create a user issued asset, and at this day of the month, I want to issue 1% extra to every asset holder or something like that. And it would just, automatically do so, perhaps.
Well, that's fine because they got destroyed. Yeah, that's the free market. But what I'm kind of wondering is if they create that token and maybe we could charge money for
10 billion
dividends.
Be worth cost.
You know what I mean? Like
for the
150,000.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I'm thinking that the numbers of tokens don't matter so much as maybe the usefulness of them. So if you want to create dividends and add dividends onto your token, it costs more. But the BSIP costs us money, so it should give us money in return, kind of thing, right?
There was something like this a couple of years ago where you could invest in a project and the person would give you coins. It wasn't on a blockchain. It was pretty centralized. But I think finding that, it failed miserably. But finding that and digging it up might give you some a nice little palette to work off.
Well, on the project I was thinking of directly seems to be failing miserably anyway, but they were going to fail me anyway. I'm just saying, like, shouldn't it cost more to create 10 billion tokens than it does 150,000?
No, because it doesn't cost the network anymore to have 1 million tokens than it would be 150,000 tokens. There's no difference at all.
Well, it does, because then you got to trade more.
Nah,
Well, everybody's saying should not. Does anybody agree or disagree? Yes or no? If you agree, yes. If you disagree,
I don't think it should be right.
Yeah, I don't think the quantity is significant.
I agree that the quantity is not significant, just like stocks in stock market. But
and a big reason for that, Walrus, is if you start regulating stuff like that, there's a lot of work that has to go into every specific contingency that might happen. And it's a lot of work for regulating something that's very little consequence in the end.
Yeah, okay, I understand that.
And kind of just and the resources, like you said, that go into it, and does it even help in the end? But I am very interested in the dividends. I'm very interested in the dang coinage too. Go ahead, Custom. You have. I can talk about what I have to talk about in 5 minutes, and we've got 25 minutes left. So let's talk about this stuff. Like, I'm personally interested in kind of doing what Walrus is talking about, like adding value to these tokens and maybe charging for them. But that's just a side topic of what you're talking about here. So I'll step back and let you step up and take the helm, man.
All right, I'll just pretty much brain dump my topics that I've been doing this week. It won't take more than like 5-10 minutes. So I submitted a pull request for my BSIPs 19, 20, 21, and 22 to the BitShares BSIP repo. So 19 is introducing the profit sharing or dividends for BTS and market pegged assets on the BitShares DEX via the redistribution of fees. 20 is similar, dividends for user issued assets on the BitShares DEX, either through, redistribution of market fees or through the issuance of additional tokens. BSIP 21 introduces the ability to query coinage of assets held by individuals upon the BTS DEX as to take coinage into account for dividends, so that, if you hold a token for longer, you get more than someone who's just bought it for the dividend day, basically. So, and then BSIP 22 proposes the introduction of expiration of votes cast within the BitShares network, so as to encourage an active voting population and active campaigning by those who desire to be voted into power. People people pass away eventually, so their votes shouldn't be permanent, much like they aren't permanent in real life, government elections. With regards to the other stuff I've been doing this week, so I wrote up a post on Steemit about brainstorming potential Hadoop MapReduce programming for BitShares, basically trying to Hadoop MapReduce is a way to do large scale batch processing of data. So the idea is to dump the transaction history for all the holders of like a selected asset, then filter through all their asset history for filled orders, work out exactly how much each user has been contributing towards market activity, basically who's the biggest market maker, then using that as a distribution mechanism. Basically, like if I have like 1,000 USD, I want to distribute it to people who have been actively participating in market making, and it's something that would require quite a lot of computation, so I don't think it's something we could do within the client. I did, however, create a GitHub issue relating to just a second, I'll pull it up so I got it. Yeah, so the command get trade history returns the date, the price, the amount, and the value of the trade, but it doesn't return the user who bought and the user who sold, right? If that was the case, then it wouldn't require pulling the transaction histories of say 30,000 people. We could just do one command, then summarize that, and then use that as the distribution. So it'd cut out a ton of work. So yeah, I'm also asking people what would you like to do? Batch processing wise, crunching a bunch of BitShares data, and what information you could extrapolate from that data. And then finally, I created a thread on Steemit about algorithm-based assets on the BitShares decentralized exchange. So I mentioned, examples of algorithm-based assets are Hero. The price feed appreciates 5% each year. Then I gave two examples of proposed algorithm-based assets. Hertz, which fluctuates the price feed based on like a sine wave. So we have buying and selling phases throughout the year. So Nemesis, the opposite of Hero, which is it depreciates 5% each year. So basically, that thread was trying to encourage people to brainstorm potential alternative algorithm-based assets, and some people have begun participating in discussion about the maximum variable inputs that we could put into these algorithms. So say when Hero fully succeeds, when it's a large market pegged asset, we would like to see copycats. Already. Yeah, definitely. But what I'm saying is that with success, you have copycats. So what's the maximum price feed appreciation in a year that a market pegged asset could be stable at? I mean, imagine someone set it to 100% interest, price feed appreciation in a year. Would that work? I don't know. It's up for discussion to a certain degree.
It's definitely a test.
And that'll vary with time and market participants. And it's very interesting.
Indeed.
Real quick.
That whole idea scares the shit out of me personally. Well, bag, but
Walrus, here's the thing. I will say this. It's a risky place. If you're making a smart coin, is what this is what Custominer's talking about. The idea of smart coins.
I understand that.
Well, this is for
it's what the smart coin's based on. That's risky.
Yes. Of course, these can be very risky. These are risky assets because, like Custominer's saying. But I'm saying this for people.
I understand it. It's just risky as shit.
Yeah, well, Walrus, I'm explaining it for people who are listening in who don't maybe know. You know what I mean? So sometimes you're going to hear me talk about that, but yeah. Okay, so this is a place there's something called AntShares where everybody can make their own user-issued asset, essentially. That's what it is. And it's worth like $300 million. A lot of people apparently don't realize that we have UIAs, but we have UIAs. We've had them from the very beginning. But we also have things like what Custominer's talk. These algorithmic coins, these smart coins, frigging programmable coins based on whatever algorithm you think might work. It probably won't, but there will be some that actually surprise us.
Well,
right?
Honestly, that's BitShares' greatest strength, but most of them aren't going to work. Yeah.
Yes. But that's what Custom Miner has always been kind of Am I wrong? Am I
But
right
the
in
ones
saying this,
that
Custom
do
Miner? Like,
work are gonna work. You know what I mean?
yeah, and that's going
What
to
are you
be,
saying,
and
Fuzzy?
it's kind of like, or is that what you're kind of saying? Like those, when we find those that work, it's going to be a huge. We're going to be like, oh, that was a hit. That was a gold mine. That was all that risk. Obviously exists for a reason.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you do have to, when we're talking about, when we're brainstorming these potential algorithm-based assets, you have to take into account the real potential for, a global settlement, aka these black swan events. BSIP 18, which is currently funded and under development, is, trying to find solutions, to recovery of a black swan event. So hopefully it won't be as risky as it currently is to, create your own market pegged asset. But I think that, as you said, when we find an appropriate algorithm with the correct settings and stuff, it will be a massive game changer. The real world, day trading, in the world will really take notice of. I mean, look at Hertz. I'm promoting this idea of my own that's not out yet. But if you trade Hertz against the US dollar, you buy it half a dollar, sell it $1.50, and do that 12 times a month. I mean that's pretty. It's not really that risky. The only point that is risky is, what if everyone was to settle at the $1 fifth top? Would that cause a global settlement? That's the only real risk. Yeah.
So you're trying to mitigate volatility with all these?
Well, it's not so much like price volatility. I don't care what it's trading at. What I'm worried about is if there is a global settlement event, that nobody loses money because of like a misconfiguration in the first place. So talking about it, and then probably doing trial runs in the BitShares testnet is probably advisable for some of these more complex algorithms.
I would say being able to give them out to people, or being able to start them and find a cheap way for people to get to participate is a very valuable thing to do. But I think that you should definitely always tie some profit motive to it. Like on the testnet, the person who gets the most, come up with a couple things that are valuable and give actual tokens for them participating in it, so you can keep them moving forward on it, and actually get something close to a live event in terms of people actually like taking the market seriously.
When you put profit motive, not that that's a bad idea, but when you put profit motive on stuff, you're going to get people who produce stuff purely for profit instead of out of the passion of the project. And that can get dangerous.
Well, I mean, in a testnet phase, you don't have that profit motive, so potentially you wouldn't be testing, scenarios which would happen in production. I mean, like, if everyone was to settle at the very top phase of Hertz, that's probably not something that people would try out in testnet unless that was a scenario that we tested, on purpose. I mean, with regards to the algorithm, that sounds like kind of complex. All it is a very simple script in a price feed script, right? So Wackow, his price feed scripts, and X0C's, BTS tools, it's like maybe 2 or 3 lines in Python that you run, compare the current dates, and spit out the appropriate price feed, and basically that's all that changes.
Mayan Danny is saying something. He says, Hertz makes no sense to me. Ponzi is softer, but maybe I'm missing things. And I think what I think it is it's something that we should really consider. I think Walrus is 100% right. For a newbie to get into these kinds of coins is like, you better be there just for like figuring it out. You know what I mean? Like, you don't get into this to make money, like to become a super wealthy person, because this is like the bleeding edge. Really, smart coins on an exchange like us, while all these other chains are still trying to figure out how
to be the richest guy ever. You're lying.
Well, the point that I'm making is like that there is risk to that, and there's a lot of.
I'm gonna make a UIA, and I'm gonna have all the BitShares and all this thing.
It's gonna be pink sheet land, no matter how you cut it.
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna have all the BitShares and all this thing.
Well, regardless, let's keep on topic here, and it's because this stuff is very important, guys, and we only have an hour. Okay, so with something like these smart coins, it's something that, like I said, Walrus is right. Custom Miner, in my opinion, I think is right too, because I think it's something that we should be doing the R&D on. And I liked that Talkinator started today and talked about the amount of money that the DEX is bringing in already, right? The amount of value that we have. I think that there's nothing wrong with, with us paying a little bit to have these things on a test net to play with and coming up with some, building some little infrastructure to do it.
Because that's basically what I've been working on. I was hoping to actually have it done before, this Hangout, but maybe it's good that I didn't. Just to throw out, because basically that's what I've done all week, trying to rip this apart. And then every time I think I sort of understand everything that's going on, and I'm like, oh, am I sure about that? But going back to this issue, I put together the whole test net and everything. I was running it actually off of a Scaleway server. For a few dollars a month, which is sort of amazing in itself. I even got EOS running there, kind of outlined it in what I'm trying to write up. But the bigger point is, the issue came up where, we're literally able to cross the offer when you're buying the bid. Just, you can pay any amount. You'll get filled at your fat finger price versus the inside offer. And what I'm actually seeing, going back to settlement prices and such, it looks like basically everything is becoming a margin call.
How much I love
What's that? Oh, okay. I thought it was. Basically, what looks like is happening is every time if someone's in there with a sort of a debt obligation and they're trying to do a short sale. The way the system looks like it's interpreting everything, and I'm actually, frankly, I've seen this, people talking about this going back to BitShares 2.0 in 2015 when it came out in some fashion or another. What it looks like is going on is if you put in a price to buy above the offer, it seems as if it's getting interpreted as a margin call, and just filling you. So it's actually trying to match up on the inside, but it's just giving you like the throwaway margin call price without adding any sort of adjustment. And that's what I'm adding in there. But I'm thinking, maybe it's also good to throw it here once more and just see, does anyone have any alternate perspective on that? Anyone else rip the code apart and see that? Tell me I'm just completely wrong and I'm missing something.
So for me, I think it's a little surprising to me, but perhaps you found something and I haven't seen it. If by any chance, have you written this up somewhere so I could maybe look at it?
I'm about to post it. Like I said, I was hoping to have it done, but I have one example after another, but it always seems to be related to what was interesting. It didn't happen on the test net, and I couldn't understand why at first. And then what I realized, wait a second, no one's really shorting necessarily on the test net.
I'm going to put on my moderator hat, guys, because Custom Miner signed up. Okay, so I would like us to keep on the topic that people sign up for. If you want to talk about something, please do what everybody else does and sign up. You make money for it. You log it so everybody can read it before the Hangout and prepare their own answers, to think about it themselves. And you don't interrupt other people. I want to make this very clear today because I've been kind of leaning back a little bit, but we have to do that. We have to have respect for the people who have signed up because that's the way that these are set up, okay?
Like I said, I actually did want to sign up and it just
got okay.
thrown off. I didn't mean to cut it in. So
we do these every week, buddy. There is no concern. You can sign up as soon as I post this post, okay? And I will even post it in the Whale Shares chat so you can see it.
Well, this was just like a really big issue that I just didn't really want to get wrong either. That was it.
I understand, but it also is a big issue to bring into somebody else's segment when the entire community, like Talkinator said, like, not everybody's read about it here, and right? And you haven't signed up, which is the point of all of this. We have to maintain some structure, or else listeners are going to say, what the hell is going on here? And they're just not going to listen.
No, I hear you. That's fine.
Okay. Sorry, Custom Miner. Is there anything that you feel like we should cover today? Because there's a lot that I can cover that I would have loved to talk about with all 4 of these BSIPs. Obviously, we didn't get to all of them today. I will ask you to please sign up for this next week too, so we can continue talking about it, because these conversations never really end, right? And I think we could talk about it for weeks on end straight. But anything that you would like to leave on as far as any notes as far as what we've talked about today?
Yeah, sure. Check out my RSVP post. Check out the links that I submitted, and I'll gladly have in-depth discussions about any or interesting topics you have to raise regarding the BSIPs, the Hadoop MapReduce, or the algorithm-based assets. Even if it's just a silly idea, there are no stupid ideas when we're brainstorming, basically. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on Beyond Bitcoin Hangouts. Do you want to speak about the CoinMarketCap ad campaign? I'm quite interested in that next.
And I just wanted to throw in my thanks also to you, Custom Miner, for all these topics are really interesting and helpful, especially the BSIP write-ups, as well as the algorithm assets. So thank you.
I'm just glad to see that these types of ideas are growing because of these tokens that we're able to hand out. It helps if it helps Custom Miner to be able to buy food and put food on the table instead of working an extra 20 hours a week somewhere. I would love it.
Yeah, totally.
I hope this is the case, Custom.
Yeah, this is my job.
Well, and a lot of this stuff, what you're bringing up, these are none of us know exactly what's going to happen with this stuff. We are literally people in Bitcoin are still thinking, how do we increase our transactions per second to a point where people aren't waiting forever for, how do we really truly decentralize ourselves without destroying ourselves, right? And we are here talking about smart assets and if they're going to work and if it's a Ponzi scheme or not. If people are going to get screwed over by this highly complex instrument, who knows? People will get screwed over with these things, but I think that's only if they're paying real money. But having competitions for trading on this stuff, we could learn a lot for a pretty cheap price. So if the politics gets in the way, Custom, and you want to try to do some contests on things like this, let me know.
Cool. Cheers, man.
And can I just jump in for 10 seconds quickly?
Talkinator, of course you can.
All right, thank you. Earlier in the middle, I spoke about the transaction fees for asset creations, and I think I spoke about it twice, and 2 times was reversed. So I just want to clarify. For the month of May, the number of operations for asset creations was 97,000. And then finally, for the month of June, it was 170,000. So it actually increased from May to June. Okay, that was it.
Nice.
Thank you.
Well, that's a good change then.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm just going to give real quick an update with regard to what we are doing in whale shares, what we're going to be doing with the worker proposal, and the forums. There's 2 forums actually, but we'll get into that really quick here. The first thing I would like to say is that we're planning on doing $25,000 for a work proposal. I've already paid for a lot of the stuff to be built up front without them having to encounter the politics in BitShares, but I do ask that you guys consider paying them a little bit more for continual work and expansion of this later on. But we have a front end that is going to, it already worked. It's not connected to BitShares yet. I need to find out if the worker GUI is done yet. I reached out, actually I asked Custom Miner because I figured you might be the person who would know first because you're always on GitHub. Do you happen to know if the worker proposals are accessible via GUI yet?
Yeah, I messaged you this on Telegram. So the latest BitShares UI code does have it already implemented. It's just a matter of compiling and releasing the latest client for the public. If you're to self-compile the BitShares UI, when you go to the worker proposal page, there is an option to click create worker proposal and
Cool. So
totally.
It's possible then for them to link it up directly to the DEX, so they can make from that form that we've created. Okay, so that'll probably be one of our next steps that we'll be looking into. But we're going to have just a quick overview. It's going to be 4 different times that we're going to go with a weak CoinMarketCap ad saying the BitShares blockchain is hiring. And I'm going to have a competition for the banner. It's going to make, so we're going to have a bunch of people on Steemit who are artists kind of competing for the best banner. That'll be free to BitShares. We're going to give an after action review for each of them, essentially data that's pulled from this. This is just an experimental kind of like outreach effort to see how much interest we get from saying that the blockchain is hiring. Allow people to make an account from there and put in a worker proposal will be the next step I'll talk to them about. If you had Customizer, I don't know, I haven't checked yet, but if you haven't, if you could consider sending me a GitHub link or anything that I could send to the devs who are working on it, I would love that. Now, with that said, Whale Shares and Beyond Bits last week has paid out well over $8,000 to people in terms of upvotes, and there's a pretty active market going on BitShares for each of them now. So there are people, just playing around with their cryptocurrencies to buy these. And people are making money off of the upvotes, the Steam dollars, and the Steam power that they get from it. And we're encouraging people who are creating high quality content or doing work that they would like to prove what they can do as far as development before they go through the bureaucratic hurdles that have been intentionally put in place for BitShares to get workers. We are there to help them. So I just want to let everybody know that these worker proposal sessions, if you know somebody who wants to do something cool and they're like, I don't want to not get paid, but I also understand that BitShares community needs to see what I'm capable of and that I'm legitimate, then we can leverage that, and we can leverage these tokens in the Hangouts for people who are working on worker proposals. So let them know that. I would really like to support and show people, and also incentivize them to log on the blockchain, what they're doing, to upvote themselves. Because one of the biggest things people complain about in coding is lack of documentation. And that's not just BitShares and cryptocurrency in general, that's everywhere. So with that said, just one real quick reminder that we have the EOS Talk forums that we're putting up. They're in beta. They use ChainBB, and I would really love, we can spin them up very quickly. We have it ready for BitShares. I'm just going to remind everybody that I'm going to be talking with Xerox about some things. I think that we should have multiple foundations, but I'm going to definitely work with the BitShares Foundation that he's running. And I think that they should be partially running the forums if we do have it, but I'm not exactly sure what the community is going to say about it. So I would urge you guys to, go out and talk to your friends who use the BitShares Talk forums. I look at them and they're anemic, and I'm sad because that's where I grew up in crypto. And they're anemic because people can get paid for posting now. So most of them are going to post to Steam. So why don't we just use forums that pay our community and make them wealthier over time? Because those are going to be the people who are the experts who in our ecosystem who don't need to be trained. And they're going to be the ones who play around and trade more and use their resources to help. I just see this as a perfect little synergistic situation. But we obviously don't have time to talk about it, but it is going to be something I'm going to continually bring up, and maybe we will have some time to talk about it. So thank you very much.
There's a lot of merit there.
Yeah, and thank you, Talkinator, for joining up. I am going to just remind everybody, the people who speak here, I'm going to give them Beyond Bits based on how much we get in upvotes. So always try to tell people to upvote our Hangouts and stuff if you are part of them, because that's going to be how you're going to get Beyond Bits and Whale Shares tokens, is going to be by participating in various Hangouts. And by doing that, you get upvotes that you can give yourself or other people. And some people even sell them on the market. So I don't advise that because anything can change, but they do. And there's always going to be value in them because I'm not powering them down, at least unless I have to get a heart surgery or something. But barring something catastrophic, you're going to see fuzzy building for a while. But thank you guys for joining up. Talkinator, you're going to be getting some tokens today. Custom Miner, you're going to be getting some tokens today. It's at like $470 the last I checked, so you guys are going to get a healthy chunk. Thank you for signing up. Thank you for participating and showing that the BitShares DEX is alive and vibrant beneath the waters, and that What most people see is really just the tip of the iceberg. See you next week.